Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. We've got a full house tonight. I'm Ben Schneider. With me, our supercars expert, Adam Lemeries. From the podium finish, Kobe Lambeth. And from his own YouTube channel, just got back from calling a busy weekend of action on his channel, Joshua Birch, joining us as well. Be sure to comment in the chat room. Leave your questions. We'll do our best to answer them on the air. We also want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, and Deshelle, for supporting and investing in the Grid Network. And we encourage all our viewers to consider doing the same if you enjoy our content and our coverage and helping to keep us on the air long term and throughout the rest of the 2022 season. Now, we'll start off tonight with a race in a country that many thought should have been canceled altogether, but a battle for the win at the end of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix allowed people to put those fears on standby for just a small moment.
Yeah, Ben, and we knew the uneasiness about Formula One racing in Saudi Arabia due to the country's poor record with human rights, discrimination, and ongoing war with the Houthis, the group responsible for launching a missile at a facility near the track. Formula One decided to go on with the race despite many strongly disagreeing with the decision. And luckily, we didn't see an attack on the Formula One race itself, and we really got away with it this time, at least this time around, at least. We wish everyone in the Formula One paddock safe travels out of Saudi Arabia and hope you all make it home safely. Now, on to the racing itself. We saw an intense battle for the win at the end, thanks to a virtual safety car. On this particular lap, everything went crazy. Valtteri Bottas brought the Alfa Romeo to the pits to retire from the race. Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo both lost power. The Marshals had to push the McLaren off the track during the VSC, but this allowed Max Verstappen to close the gap to Charles Leclerc out front. Both drivers swapping the lead, playing games in the DRS zone, but it was last year's world champion Max Verstappen who came out on top to win the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in Jeddah. Last year we saw Verstappen battle Lewis Hamilton for the title all year long, but this year Mercedes doesn't seem like they have the car yet that can potentially fight Red Bull. And Ferrari is their main rival right now after two races. And starting with you, Ben, could we see another great championship battle this year? And this time around, Verstappen versus Leclerc.
I hope so. I think that's certainly what it's shaping up to be. I'd love it if Mercedes could get up there as well, and hopefully they'll iron out some of their problems. I think they might be down on power. We've seen some of their customer teams really struggle, particularly on a track like this that you're flat out for so much of a lap. But let's get back to Leclerc and Verstappen for a second. I mean, I think the regulations are doing exactly what they were intended to do. I mean, this was a phenomenal battle between two great young drivers. And I certainly hope that, this is what we were lamenting last year. Like, imagine if Leclerc and Ferrari could get their act together and be up there battling with Hamilton and Verstappen. Well, now Ferrari are there. We've seen they won, obviously, in Bahrain, got their 1-2 finish. They are 2-3 today. They easily could have won again. Maybe if the DRS zones were positioned a little bit differently, they would have won again. But it was a great battle. And, that's all you can really ask for. And I certainly think it's shaping up. Again, it's still early. We have to see how each team handles any upgrades they might bring over the course of the season. If one driver might start to pull ahead over another, if one constructor might start to pull ahead over another. But at the moment, it's looking like it's going to be a great battle between the defending world champion and the young Monegasque driver, Charles Leclerc, and I'm all here for it.
Right here with you. Absolutely. What a season we could have as well. Mercedes generally off the pace. We've been saying that since they began in Barcelona in the first day of preseason testing. Ferrari have looked on it all the time as well, and they arguably should have won today's race as well. But some fantastic slipstream and tactics and mind games being played by both sides as well. My favorite moment of the race actually was that nobody wanted to lead down the start-finish straight. We had this strange situation where Verstappen was braking hard, so he didn't go across the DRS detection line, and Charles Leclerc was also lifting off the throttle. So Leclerc was saying, okay, you can pass me now. Verstappen saying, no, after you take the lead. It was a very weird situation that nobody wanted to lead the Grand Prix for such a long time. But honestly, I think this year we're seeing another great title fight. And for once, it's between two drivers who have spent years coming up through the ranks as well. And finally, it's the day of the youngsters. this season is going to be a complete shift in the narrative as well. Hamilton might get involved later on, but this is beginning to feel like 2005, 2006, when it was Schumacher. In those days, he played a back role to the main title fight that year, which was Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen. I'm thinking this is going to be it again. Lewis Hamilton taking over the role of Schumacher, playing the back role of supporting this action. And we've got Red Bull and Ferrari right there. It's going to be, let's put Alonso as Verstappen and let's put Raikkonen as Leclerc as well. And it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. We're 2 races in. It's 1 apiece as well. And where does that sound so familiar? Oh yeah, jump back 12 months where we saw race 1 go the way of Hamilton, race 2 go the way of Verstappen. It's parallels here. Race 1 went the way of Leclerc, race 2 goes the way of Verstappen. The only good thing is Ferrari have a 40-point lead in the Constructors' Championship, and at the moment, in the driver's standings, it's a Ferrari 1-2 with Leclerc ahead of Sainz. We've got a title fight in our hands. The calendar just needs to rejig a little bit, and the timings coming closer together, and then we've really got a fight on our hands. Maybe by the time we get to Monaco as well after 5 rounds, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, Josh, it's really looking like it's setting up to be another great year of Formula One racing and a championship battle as well. Ferrari's definitely having a great start to their season, and maybe Mercedes will get their car working better, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But right now, it seems like Ferrari and Red Bull, they're going to be really going at it out there. And we have some comments in the chat room below, starting with Amber saying you like the track, but Saudi Arabia scares you. Yeah, Amber, I think Saudi Arabia scares a lot of people, including a lot of people in the Formula One paddock who didn't particularly want to be there in the first place and wanted to leave after the missile strike, but like I said, we got away with it this time. Luckily, nothing bad happened, but I fear next time we may not get so lucky. And then Michael Tiller saying, what an intense Saudi Arabian race. That battle between Verstappen and Leclerc was truly incredible. That could be a sign of a season. Totally agree with you, Michael. Could definitely be a sign of things to come throughout the season. You also add at this point, it sounds like Mercedes saying, you know what, we've won so much, so let's let someone else compete for now. Still that's tough to watch in some regard. I admit, Michael, it's kind of weird seeing Mercedes not as competitive as they have been in the past, but we're still going to be waiting to see if they're going to bring some significant upgrades in the early part of the season and if they can join the title fight. And also have Edward Hunter in the chat room. He said if Joshua's 2005 scenario is accurate, then that makes George Russell Rubens Barrichello.
Well, he was P5 today, and literally he was in a race of his own, Russell. I saw him twice on the broadcast. He didn't overtake anyone. He didn't get overtaken by anyone. He was just there. So in my opinion there, Ed, he very much was Rubens Barrichello today. I feel sorry for the lad. He's waited 15 years to get in a Mercedes-powered car. He's waited 4 seasons in Formula One. The one time he gets in a team and it goes to pots. I can't believe it. I'm predicting already that Russell might just bin off Mercedes and go to Ferrari if they don't want Sainz.
Well, Josh, I think it's important to remember there are 7 constructors out there that would love to have the pace Mercedes have right now. So they're still third when it comes to pace. So, it's bad based on the standards that they've set for themselves the last 8 years of this turbo hybrid era. But I think it's still certainly an upgrade, and George Russell is going to be much happier than he is or than he has been in the Williams the last few years.
It's great to point that out as well, because haven't we all found out, we were all surprised this weekend that all the Ferrari powered cars have suddenly had a fantastic weekend here. Alfa Romeo, they've improved massively. Haas have improved massively. Ferrari now one of the strongest power units in Formula One. What has changed? Well, it's what I was talking about in preseason testing, was the fact that 2 years ago, or maybe 3 seasons ago, 2019, Ferrari had an illegal engine. Now, from what I've heard up and down the paddock is the fact that they were burning oil to give them extra speed and extra fuel reserve throughout the race. That's why their car was competitive in the second half of the 2019 season. They got sanctioned for that, to which they had to run their power units in 2020 and 2021 for 2 seasons at reduced speeds. So they could only use about 80% of their actual engine power. as a sanction. So that's why we've seen 2 seasons where Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, and Haas are so far off the pace, they've been limited on their engines. As soon as these new regulations come in, and as soon as that engine curfew has been lifted, suddenly they're back to the front again. So it's all these mind games as well. And he said, she said, up and down the paddock. It's fantastic to get your teeth back into some proper F1 gossip. But I must admit, this weekend, it sort of stood out for me that Ferrari is so quick and that Haas was overtaking the Mercedes on pure pace. It was weird.
I just want to bring this back up. Amber, that actually happened in my season 2 of my F1 2020 career mode. So you never know what's going to happen in Formula One. We'll see if George Russell does have any plans to leave Mercedes if things get bad enough. But I think we got to give them more than 2 races. And knowing how strong Mercedes have been, I have no doubt that eventually they'll close the gap just a little bit, if not get right back to where they've been.
Yeah, I definitely expect Mercedes to close the gap. I don't know if they're going to close the gap enough yet to fight Ferrari and Red Bull on a regular basis, but it's still very early on in the season. And we have some more comments in the chat below. Saying Alonso's DNF made your day gutted. He said could have been 6 and 7 for Alpine and more points for the constructors if he had gone through to the end. I would say what a mega battle that was between Alpine teammates Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, swapping positions back and forth. Definitely one of the best battles of the day outside of the race for the win. Also some more comments saying Hamilton had one of his worst weekends in a long time and got really lucky with that 10th place finish. And we're going to be talking about Lewis Hamilton's day in just a little bit. And also something else we're going to be talking about. You're talking about Checo, Sergio Perez. You feel bad for him the most because he dropped outside of the podium after starting from pole position. Yet a timing was really off for Perez. And while the chat room is really active tonight, got a few more from Edward Hunter saying I would compare it to Ricardo joining Red Bull in 2014. Mercedes are no longer a title contending force, but still able to win races. That's definitely something very interesting to think about. Thank you for sharing. And last comment right here from Michael Tiller saying, despite the fact that you're not Mercedes' biggest fans right now, seeing them fall like this and not be super competitive does sting. And we really appreciate all of your comments and be sure to continue sharing them. We'll display them right here live on the air. Is there something you wanted to add, Josh?
Yeah, it was a little stat I was told about Lewis Hamilton as well. Bar the accident he had in Brazil 2017 after he won the title and he didn't get out of Q1. It's actually Lewis Hamilton's worst qualifying performance on pure pace since Silverstone 2009. That's unbelievable.
Wow.
And, so long ago. Thanks to Alex Jakes, the Channel 4 F1 commentator, for that stat. But honestly, unbelievable as well that it was that long ago.
Man.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's been that long for Lewis Hamilton. And like you said, he's ready to get out of Saudi Arabia, move on to the next race. And like Lewis Hamilton, we're going to be moving on to the next topic. And while that virtual safety car period late in the race helped Verstappen close the gap to Charles Leclerc, it really hurt Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes, after starting P15, Hamilton had worked his way up all the way to 6th place, but didn't get to come into the pits early enough to keep his track position. So Hamilton finally pitted and dropped from 6th to 12th and ended up finishing 10th, collecting a single point. And George Russell in the other Mercedes got a 5th place result. 2 races down, still early in the season. Do you see Mercedes showing some improvement in the coming races ahead?
The next race is in Albert Park, Australia. They've relayed the circuit. The FIA have deemed it's a brand new circuit, despite the fact we've posted 24 races there. They've changed the layout so much, it's now indescribable from the other. We've got this strange situation where it's a fast circuit, but it's not really a circuit you bring major upgrades to. We're going to sort of go to like a standstill season opener, sort of halfway race. It's really weird. So we're not going to see improvements until we get to Imola, which is the sort of start of the European season for proper. And Mercedes are going to struggle in Australia. I think they're going to struggle in Imola as well. They're going to have to wait for a long time to get some upgrades to this car. They've got to fix the propulsing issues as well. That was mainly affecting Hamilton this weekend as well. You saw him in qualifying, bouncing up and down as well, and his head getting rattled around as well. He was actually complaining that his vision was going a little bit blurry as well at the end of just qualifying number 1 was Lewis. in the press conference. But I think they'll get their problems sorted. They've got experience to do so. But as I said, I think it's a 2005 Ferrari situation. They've dominated for so long. Regulation changes come in and they're not top dog anymore. They dominated the previous set of regulations and not these ones. It seems like Ferrari and Red Bull have got it right. Mercedes very much on the back foot. That's a surprise. In terms of the pit stop for Hamilton today, it was another thing of Mercedes got their strategy wrong. Yes, we had two cars stuck on the inside of the pit lane, but the pit lane was still open. It wasn't closed until the VSC came out. Ed says as well, Edward Hunter, I'll go to bed. Good night, guys. Great to hear your thoughts. See you in Formula E in Rome in 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks' time. For Rome. And Joe says, what happened to Tsunoda today? I know what happened to Tsunoda today because I was commentating at the time. He had a complete engine failure. He had no power. The power unit just died out. And it is a problem with the Honda unit. And they're thinking as well, it's the same issue as in Bahrain, was the fact that there's not enough fuel getting to the system. So major headaches for Red Bull. Anyone for Ferrari for the championship this year? Both of them, I think that's a pretty good bet. Oh, and sorry about Hamilton as well. Just got told in my ear. Yeah, Hamilton could have come into the pit lane. It wasn't closed till the VSC came out. They made that mistake. And by the time he got told to box, he was always halfway down towards turn one. So Bono not on it again. And again, this is what I said. Every time Mercedes are not leading the race, they don't know what they're doing. They are thrown out. They're too used to being at the front, not in the midfield. Their brains go. It's weird.
I'll go with Ferrari as a constructors world champion so far from everything I've seen. And I complete with everything you said, Josh. And then we have another comment from Michael Tiller. He says, it's my understanding one of Albert Park's turns has been updated. I can't remember exactly which one it is. Still, I'd love to see you back on the calendar after these COVID times. Yeah, Michael, I agree with you. I forget which corner it is as well. And I think once we get to Monaco, I think Mercedes will be up there. I think they will struggle in Australia, struggle at Emilia Romagna, and it's going to be once we get toward the middle of the season, I think we'll know if Mercedes are players, not only in the Constructors' Championship, but in the Drivers' Championship as well. And in going back to what you all talking about before this, I think it will be Charles Leclerc versus Max Verstappen all season long for the F1 Drivers' Championship. It's going to be an incredible battle all season long as we head to Albert Park in Australia in just 2 weeks' time.
I'll just jump in here quick because I know the turn names that have changed as well. Turns 3, 5, 9, 11, and 15 have had major changes. Turn 9 used to be the tight right-hander down in third gear. Now it's just one smooth sweep around the lake.
Cool. Joshua, we also have a comment here for you in the chat room from Michael Tiller. Says he thought Honda was out of Formula One. So can you explain that situation to Michael?
Yes, it's a very strange situation. So Honda are remaining as Red Bull's engine supplier until the end of 2025. That is because in 2026 we have a new regulation of engines coming in. They're still going to be turbocharged and hybrids, but it's a different variation of what it's going to be. So Honda have agreed to the engine freeze, which means all the engines are now homologated until the end of that 2025 period. But they're no longer the title sponsor of the team. They're no longer the official engine supplier. That now belongs to Red Bull Powertrains, sponsored by Honda. So what happens is Red Bull get the engines from Honda and then they develop them, do all the dyno running and all the testing and all that lot. Honda come in and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, try this, try that, just as like an advisor. But for this season, this is where it gets even more complicated. They are in exactly the same role as what they were last year. So they are at the track doing all of the data running they did last year, but they're not officially there. It's a deal that Helmut Marko has done. This is a crossover period. So Red Bull this year are learning their own engineers as to how to develop these engines while Honda do it all. So basically, they've got the teacher to do the homework and the students looking over and learning what they're doing. So Honda are here, but they're like this. They're not really here. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil sort of situation.
And Josh, just to bounce off of that, is that not a similar situation to what Red Bull did with Tag Heuer when they were at the end of their Renault run? The engines were badged as tags, but it was still, for all intents and purposes, a Renault engine.
Yeah, bang on, exactly what they do. And they did it as well with Infinity in 2014 with the hybrid engines as well. It's just a different name, but it's the same engine. It's a really strange concept. And I don't know how they've got away with it because it's not actually supposed to be allowed. Because in that way, I could buy a Yamaha engine, put it as Birch Productions engines of mass media Formula One engines and put it in the back of an F1 car, but it'd still be a Yamaha engine. It's really bizarre. You just a fancy name for it, basically. So it is still a Honda engine. It is still Honda, and it is still there. It's their engine, it's their turbocharger, and it's their fuel system as well. And that seems to be what's having so much of the issue because the cars have been redesigned so much. The technology is overheating and cutting out with the new shape of these 2022 cars.
And we do have a couple more questions in the chat room. One from our own Joe Samniego asking, when was the last time Ferrari won at Melbourne? I believe you have the answer to that one, Ben.
Yeah, I actually just pulled the stream up and put it in chat myself. It's 2018 with Sebastian Vettel. He went back-to-back in 17 and 18, as another one of our viewers commented. And then I think Bottas actually won it in 19 with Mercedes, and we haven't had the race since then. So it's been a couple of years.
That is correct, Ben. That is correct.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm going to go through a few more comments right quick. Amber says she predicted Haas is going to win one race, and you bet it's going to be Baku. Well, why not Haas? Why not Baku? Since it seems like it's the Talladega of the Formula One schedule with all the unpredictable things that are going to happen. Watch, Haas is going to win the the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku. That would be really crazy. And Michael, thanking Josh for verifying which turns are updated in Australia, and thanks for clarifying Honda and the engines. And we also have another question for you, Josh. Just one more for the time being.
Right.
Yes, and didn't the track in Spa also have some changes as well?
Yes, they did.
Yes.
They did.
Now, it's slight cosmetic changes, but they have changed the circuit. So what they've done is they've knocked down the old grandstand that used to run along down towards Eau Rouge and up towards Raidillon. That's now gone. It is going to be rebuilt before the race goes back there, so don't worry. They've just knocked it down because it got destroyed in the flooding last year. It was very unsafe as well, and it was old and it was rotting. It hadn't been updated since the 80s, so that's going to be gone. A brand new, fresh grandstand is going to be built there as well, and they've taken the opportunities. They've cut some of the trees down so they can have a nice, big, flash grandstand similar to what we have at Silverstone with the wing. They've moved the Armco barrier back, so it's got more runoff area. That is mainly for the motorcycles because they want to get MotoGP there for 2024, which I think is possible. So they've moved that back. They've put gravel back at La Source and all the way down towards Eau Rouge as well. At Eau Rouge, it's still the tarmac runoff, but they've moved the barrier further back. They've demolished the old little cottage. They've put a new grandstand there. They've put gravel there. Gravel permanently now at the exit of Arabian, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Camel Straight's the same. Lecombs, Malmedy. So when we get to Rivage, that it's different. Gravel now at the exit of Rivage, a bit like what we saw, if you remember, when Lewis Hamilton was leading the race in 2010. He locked up and went down into the gravel. That's back. Speaker's Corner is the biggest change on the track since 2007. Now, for Formula One, it'll be exactly the same. They'll go off into a sweeping left-hander, but for one of the motorcycles, they've had to change it. It's now a very tight left-hander, so a separate part of the track has been created. If you think at Silverstone as well, at Chapel, just after Maggots and Beckett's, for the motorcycles, they take a longer route round because they can't switch the bike over that quick. So it's just another little kink. Won't affect us. They're going to cover it up with some sponsorship as well. When Formula One race there, we'll hardly notice the difference, but still it looks nicer. Pouin has got gravel once again. Stabilo gravel back finally after a couple of years away. And then Blanchimont as well. Blanchimont has been restored to what it once was back in 2000s, early 2000s.
Yes.
So gravel's back, the barrier's further back as well, and there's more layers of tyre protection. One thing, though, I'm really annoyed at them about, they still haven't fixed the bus stop, and because the bus stop used to be shaped like an actual bus stop, because it was a bus stop. Yeah, it was a bus stop.
Sure was.
Spa's a street track, basically.
Yeah.
But they haven't fixed that, but they've just put gravel down there as well. I've heard rumors that they're looking at trying to create the old bus stop with the new chicane still implemented. Don't know how they're going to do it, but that could be for 2024 because they want the motorcycles to have a proper slow segment because they've tested it and there's a lot of front locking going into the bus stop because it's from flat out all the way from Curve de Porphyre to the bus stop, and it's just too much on the bikes for engine braking. So that's the updates to Spa. It looks gorgeous, and also A, it's a lot safer, B, it won't flood, and also C, they've installed the drain slits that they have on the start-finish straight all the way around the track, which means it's not going to bump, but it's going to be less ocean like we had to cancel the Grand Prix for.
Love it.
There you go. I was on the phone a lot last week when the pictures got announced.
I believe it, Josh. I believe it.
Yeah, and want to acknowledge the comment there on the screen. Michael Tiller been sitting there for a couple of minutes. He said, "You think Spa needs to update the track so it's drivable in the rain?" I think Josh has already answered that right there. So it'll be a much better time in Spa-Francorchamps in the wet. And you said the failed 2021 race as well as the beginning of the 1998 race should be a prime example of that. And Michael also says he remembered the bus stop like that. You would love to see that come back as well. And our own Joe Samniego said the same thing. And next, moving on to our next topic, Sergio Perez. While it was a missed opportunity this weekend for Lewis Hamilton and the other driver burned by a yellow, Sergio Perez, many thought it would be a great chance for Checo to flex his muscles and potentially get a win. The Red Bull driver came into the pits almost immediately after the fact that Nicholas Latifi crashed, bringing out a safety car. Leclerc and Verstappen were able to dive into the pits with the pace reduced on track and came out ahead of Perez, basically ending any chances he had of winning. And Sergio Perez of the Red Bull ended up finishing in fourth place. After looking like an early contender, not being in this position as often as his championship-winning Red Bull teammate Max Verstappen, how unfortunate was this untimely safety car for Checo?
Massively unfortunate. Just one more lap and he would have won the Grand Prix today, you have to admit. That he got so unlucky with Latifi crashing and the safety car coming out as well. I've heard that somewhere before. It sounds a bit haunting to me. I'm getting flashbacks. Where Unfortunate Son is playing in the background as every time I see Latifi in the wall, I'm having to call a safety car. But no, in all honesty, Perez, I think, lost out a lot today. It wasn't his fault. It was a genuine misunderstanding in terms of the fact that it shouldn't have happened like that. It was, and what's the word I'm looking for? Unfortunate, unlucky, and I think Checo is going to win races this year. But I think it was nice that on the 11th anniversary of him debuting in Formula One in Australia 2011, he started today's race on pole position, which I think is a nice little feather in the cap. But yeah, massively lucky for Checo today. But what a luck for Verstappen, Leclerc, and Sainz. There was an investigation into Sainz's Verstappen's pit release into the path of Sainz, but nothing's come of that. So I think the stewards have decreed that it was just about legal.
Yeah, it's tough not to feel bad for Sergio today. You know, you have to totally, commend the lap that he put in yesterday to break Mark Webber's record again, which he broke at Sakir in 2020 for longest amount of races before the first win. Breaks Mark's record again for most races before his first pole position. I think it was like 2:15 or something crazy like that with how long he's been in the sport. Great to see him finally get pole position. We have a couple more comments coming in as well this weekend from SHT here. This weekend could have been Sergio Perez's chance to dominate the whole race over Max Verstappen, but got really unlucky with the safety car. Absolutely. I think Sergio was probably on pace for the win, assuming he hit all his marks after that. And Michael coming in here, I tell you what, I feel sorry for Perez. It was a great pole position win, his first, but it's upsetting he couldn't convert it to a win. But trust me, his day will come. And it has already come twice. You know, it would have been nice to see Sergio get another win today, having kind of led from start to finish, because he did have some outside influence come in that helped him, you know, not to take anything away from the 2 wins that he has. But, you know, I know he really wanted to win this one today and convert that pole into a win. Amber saying, I think Perez would have won, but Latifi has a habit of crashing and helping out Verstappen. Well, I guess there you go, Josh. There's not only the connection of Latifi inadvertently screwing over the leader of the race with a safety car, it's benefited Verstappen both times. So what do you have to say about that, I guess? But
I think Nicholas Latifi's got a life supply of Red Bull. I think he must have signed a contract. Isn't Latifi a Red Bull driver? Wasn't he sponsored by them? I swear he was.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Well, Albon certainly is, even though he's the Williams teammate now. I don't know. I know Latifi's obviously got some connections that have given him some financial benefits that mean he's probably going to keep his seat for a while. But I don't know if Red Bull's behind that at all. I think they certainly owe him one after Abu Dhabi last year. Michael, again, just to clarify, Ben, I know Perez has won a few races, but I meant to win from pole position. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Sergio, of course, a race winner in his own right. But it would have been nice to see him get the win today. Josh, you have something else?
Yeah, can we technically say that he has actually won from pole position? He started on pole on the restart in Azerbaijan last year. Right. He was on pole.
That is true.
But it's not an official pole. So he has won from pole position, but he hasn't won from pole. Now, this is why I hate standing starts on restarts. It messes up the polls. Does it count? Does it not count? That's why, actually, if you look at Michael Schumacher's pole position records, there is actually an asterisk next to it, because he started on pole 5 times on a restart procedure, because the Belgian Grand Prix in 2016, in 2001, the first half was declared null and void after 6 laps. But it was Montoya who got pole position for that event. But in the record books, it's Schumacher, because he started the 36 laps on pole. So a lot of dodginess there, and I'm glad that that's not sort of going to be a problem here. Then again, is Lewis Hamilton actually on pole position, because he got pole in Silverstone last year, but got demoted back after the sprint race. So confusing.
I think he even asked in the press conference, like, it still counts, right? And he had somebody come in his ear and said, no, it actually doesn't. So, you know, it does get confusing here.
That's what I remember.
They just didn't want to give him pole 101 for ages, or did he? He did it in Turkey as well and lost out.
Yes, he did.
Yes, and we have a question in the chat room from SHT saying, how would we compare Sergio Perez's loss today in Jeddah to Lando Norris's loss in Russia last season? Ben, you want to take a stab at that one?
I mean, I think Lando's was a little bit more heartbreaking, just because it would have been his first win, and he was a lot closer to the finish than Sergio was today. You know, we can say, you know, Sergio obviously would have been in a strong position to go on and win the race, but he still would have had to hit his marks for, you know, whatever would have been 30 odd laps or so. You know, Lando was right there at the finish, and you have to wonder if McLaren had brought him in, or if he had decided to come in, maybe he could have won the race anyway if they had gone onto the wet tires. But yeah, 2 heartbreaking circumstances, but I still think, you know, Lando, and Lando is still searching for his first win, and I don't know if he's going to get it this year with the car that McLaren have produced. So it's I would still say that's probably the worst one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ben. With the way the Mercedes powered cars are running this season, I'm not sure how well they're going to do across the board this year. And Sergio Perez and Jeddah, Lando Norris and Sochi, two heartbreaking losses. I feel like at some point in his Formula One career, Lando Norris is going to break through, be able to get his first career Formula One victory, and that's for Sergio Perez. Unfortunately, you have days like today, and I think he will win at least one Grand Prix race later on in the season. I don't know where that will be, but I think he will eventually get it done. It really seems like he's truly settling in at Red Bull. And revisiting some of the safety concerns one final time, Formula One faced significant pressure to pull out of Saudi Arabia at the very last minute. They felt like plans from local officials to guarantee everyone's safety was good enough, so the show went on anyways. Thankfully, no attack on the Jeddah circuit. Everyone saw a good show today, and Formula One moves on to Melbourne, Australia, for the return of the Australian Grand Prix next on the calendar, April 10th. And at the end of the day, do you think today's race in Saudi Arabia should have still been canceled? And will Formula One return to Jeddah next year despite being locked into a long-term deal, 15-year contract?
Well, I'll read something here from ESPN from earlier this morning. It said Formula One's 20 drivers came close to boycotting the race in the early hours of Saturday morning after a missile attack on an oil depot 10 kilometers east of the circuit raised concerns about security at the venue. I think we talked about this yesterday. Cash is king. Yeah, they do have a contract. And I know there's probably a lot of people that would like to see F1 go to another track besides Saudi Arabia. One track comes to mind is maybe Kyalami in South Africa, if they can get upgraded to FIA Grade 1 status. Another place that a lot of people would like to see return on the calendar is the German Grand Prix, either at the Hockenheimring or the Nürburgring. And we have a comment here from our own Joe Samaniego. He says, Perez, I believe, was just more bad luck and timing. Lando at the end told the team he was trying out and lost the race. Yeah, Joe, I completely agree with you. And we have another comment from SHT saying the race makes it very interesting, but the safety of the area is another concern. Yeah, I think there was a 3-day ceasefire this weekend after Saturday. So even the president of the FIA said it would be safe, for the drivers, and there was an interview this morning with the F1 president, on the Prix show on Sky Sports, talking about the safety and concerns of everyone in Saudi Arabia. So it'll probably stay on the F1 calendar until the contract runs out, but I don't think a lot of people want to return to Saudi Arabia after what we saw this weekend.
I mean, I said it on the pre-race show yesterday. Honestly, if you want to be real here, the race shouldn't have been canceled because it never should have happened in the first place. There should have been no need to cancel it. We never should have, Formula One never should have entered into this contract in the first place. And we have a comment here from Amber saying if they could, they still go to Russia for money. And, on that note, if we're racing in Saudi Arabia, why did we cancel the Russian Grand Prix? Why did we have this statement that the drivers came out with no war and peace in Ukraine 2 weeks ago, and now we turn right around and we're going to a country where a similar situation is happening between them and Yemen. It's just not getting as much coverage over here in the West, and maybe isn't in the front of the minds of people as much. But it's essentially the same issue. The human rights situation over there is absolutely terrible. That's number one. Number two, when you have a missile that's striking 10 kilometers away from the racetrack, they said if a credible threat appeared, that they would go ahead and cancel the race. If that's not a credible threat, I don't know what is. So I like I said, I feel for everybody, that's on the grounds over there. Very thankful to be safe over here in the States just watching it. But even then, it was hard to pay attention to the race today when this was all still very fresh in your mind. Certainly hope everybody is able to leave the country safely and there are no further concerns over there. But it is, I don't know. Like I said yesterday, the We Race is one slogan. It feels pretty hollow when we have races like this. I'll defer to my colleague Josh here because I think he has some more connections than I even have here. I don't even know if buying them out of a 15-year contract is an option, but if it is, I would think we certainly should go down that road.
Well, my personal opinion on the matter was that the race should have been cancelled. The drivers didn't want to race. They were then forced into racing. They were convinced by the team principals and sort of in some what has been reported by the BBC, some sort of threatening from the government, almost like if they didn't race, then it would be very difficult for them to leave Saudi Arabia. We understand that's because they locked the airspace down around Jeddah as well. So that's the official explanation as to why it would be difficult for them to leave. But the drivers did feel threatened, and the drivers did feel that they didn't want to race. The team principals wanted to race. The FIA wanted to race. And apparently there's no disagreement there. 3 words: cash is king. That's it, really. I didn't like the fact that the race went ahead. I'll admit, Saturday, in the back of my head during FP3 and qualifying as well, it was circulating that at any second something could happen. And it was a bit of fear of watching it as well and commentating on it. I will also perfectly admit that because of my role as a commentator on the race as well, once the race itself gets going, I'm focusing on purely the race. I'm focusing on the timings, trying to work out pit stop strategies, thinking of questions to my 2 commentators in the box and my pit reporter. I'm taking information from several different people. I'm getting text messages from people at the circuit. I'm getting voices in my ears as well from people who are sending me voice notes on WhatsApp that get automatically played through. So we can always get some information. So during the race, at no point did I think about a possible attack at the circuit, but that's not reflective and should be saying that just because I didn't think it, because I was busy broadcasting and working, it doesn't mean to say that you lot at home weren't thinking that. So I'm very interested to know if all our viewers who were watching the race, was that in the back of your mind as well? Because from my point of view, it did slip out. But what has not slipped out throughout the entire weekend is the fact is that we should not be here. I've said it from the start. Edward Hunter was on my pre-qualifying show as well, saying about this is a horrific war that we've got going on between Yemen and Saudi Arabia. There is a 3-day ceasefire. From what Ed tells me, is because Saudi Arabia sent massive retaliation strikes to Yemen's capital as well. I mean, in Bahrain in 2012, there was an attack just a few days before the race as well, after we cancelled the race in 2011. Stop racing on our blood was what the civilians were crying over to F1. It didn't cancel the race. And again, it seems another situation here. It's very dark to be racing in a war zone. Russia, I think they got manipulated into having to make a statement because of Ukulari and being tied to Haas and Dmitry Mazepin, a direct involvement in the war, of course, funding Vladimir Putin as well. And of course, he was then funding a Formula One team. So they were sort of put in a very difficult position where they had to sever ties. With Saudi Arabia, they can sweep it under the rug. Sports washing is what they call it. And that's what Saudi Arabia has tried to do over the past couple of years as well. We had an incident in the Dakar earlier on in the year as well, where a mine went off and damaged one of the cars and injured some of the drivers and fans as well. It's just, what does it take? From what I understand, the drivers have completed this weekend, but they're going to form later on and say, we don't want to race here anymore. And if we do have to race here, there's going to be a lot more security and a lot more risk, because 6 miles away from the circuit, it could have very easily hit the circuit, but that wasn't the point. The point was to send a message to say, we can get you at any time. That's what's terrified the drivers, and rightly so, because it's not right. You should not have to put your life on the line in an active war zone to go motor racing, to do something you love, to do a passion. It's not what we signed up for. Several of the journalists flew out of the race. They boycotted it. Ralf Schumacher, one of them, for Sky Germany. Several people have stayed. I can understand why, because it's a lot of money for some people who can't change their flights to do this out their own back. The race should not have happened. It should have been cancelled, and I hope everybody gets out there safe. Let's go to Australia now. The party atmosphere of the F1 calendar, one of the greatest events that they can do. But let's also, if like we had in Bahrain, where we had the no war and the fundraising for Ukraine, I think in every country we go to that we have to race because of the contracts, where there's dispute, Formula One should set up a charity, have a fundraiser in the paddock, and donate money and get it to the people that matter, the civilians. That's my take on the matter.
And speaking of Australia, Josh, have a question right there from Michael Tiller in the chat room. He says he's glad that Mick Schumacher is all right from that horrific qualifying crash, and he said, "Do you think he'll be able to compete in Australia?" And Mick actually said he believed that he was fit enough to compete today, but Haas did not want to risk messing up the car trying to repair it so quickly overnight. They just wanted to focus on getting the car ready for Melbourne, Australia. And I have to say, although the situation in Jeddah ended the way it did, with the drivers wanting to cancel the race altogether and not compete, but the team principals and Formula One executives wanting to do that as well, you have to give a huge round of applause to the drivers for standing up for what they believe in, although it was very unpopular at the time. And that leads into this question from Amber. Josh, I'm sure you'll have a great answer for this. Talk about, does Formula One have a group like the NASCAR Drivers Council?
Yes, and actually, that's my one shining moment. We've come to that slightly early, actually. So sorry, Adam,
Yeah,
I'll
Josh,
take it now.
You handle it.
Yeah, it is my one shining moment. The drivers is called the GPDA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association. It was formed in 1994 with Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, and Martin Brundle as the three directors. It was formed in Monaco, the race or two after the deaths of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna. In Imola, of course, the drivers felt they needed better representation in the FIA, better voices going forward. So they, after a 4-hour meeting, it was decided that the GPDA would be reformed, reorganized, and ever since then it's been going strong. The current directors, we've got Sebastian Vettel, he is senior director, Alex Wirtz as well, he's the president, and the junior director is our own George Russell. Now, Alex Wirtz and Sebastian Vettel, obviously not at the circuit, so it was actually George Russell who was leading the GPDA meeting. And here's a little stat for you as well. The world champion has the right to speak on behalf of the drivers, but never takes it. The last driver to do so was Ayrton Senna in 1991 at Adelaide, when he went up and down everybody saying, "You don't want to race, do you? No, don't want to race. Right, off I go then to race control. We're not racing, guys. Sorry, end of, put the red flag out." But the world champion's never taken that dictatorial role since that race, that day. What it usually does is the world champion of that year, so this year it'd be Max Verstappen, he'd have a conversation with the drivers and then relay suggestions. He no longer has the power to speak on behalf of the drivers solely. It's very much become a union. So that is the F1's version of the NASCAR Drivers Council, and hopefully, as my voice starts to go, as well, Formula 2 felt very out of the loop this weekend. They never got asked if they want to race or not. So they are now going to ask for representation on the GPDA for the races they share with Formula 1. And hopefully they get it as well.
I'll agree, Josh.
Hey, you have something you want to add, Ben? Ben, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Kobe. Josh, I was just going to say, I think we will hopefully have you on Encore tomorrow to talk about that. And want to thank you again for everything you said here. I know it's almost 3 a.m. over in your neck of the woods, so we will let you get some sleep here, and hopefully you'll be back to join us tomorrow. And like we said, thanks again, as always, for your coverage and your contributions to this program. We really, truly appreciate it.
Pleasure. I'll be on tomorrow, and everyone have a great, safe week, and I'll see you for MotoGP Argentina.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Really appreciate you being here. Before we let you go right quick, heading into NASCAR, I have a few more comments, not questions. Thank you, guys. Thank you for answering those questions tonight. Yeah, but more comments from SHT saying, I don't know how Vettel will react when he returns for the Australian Grand Prix to drive his Aston Martin car if the pace of the car is still this bad in the next few races. So, well, actually, that is a question. I didn't see that. So I'm gonna actually throw that over to you, Adam. What do you think?
I think if Sebastian Vettel comes back for Australia, it'll be his first time in the car. I don't think he'll have really good pace. I think once we get toward the middle of the season, I think we'll know how he does. We all wish Sebastian Vettel, feeling better, so we can go and race at the Outlaw Park circuit in Melbourne, Australia.
Yes, we have another comment saying, unless the location is dangerous, car racing series should be free to race wherever they want. Racing is something that brings people together, regardless of nationality, religion, politics, etc. Totally agree with that. And we should not be racing in an environment like Saudi Arabia, where it has a poor human rights record. Mentioned as well at the beginning, discrimination, all of that, in an active war zone, which is really crazy and mind blowing. Nobody should have to risk their lives to be a part of this environment. And Michael Tiller says, also agree with Josh that it's not worth it to race in the active war zone. And one last comment from Michael in this Formula One section said, and yes, you agree with Haas in deciding not to let Mick Schumacher race safety first, considering the severity of the crash. Our Formula One section of the show almost lasted an entire hour, and we'll head over to yeah, busy week, and we'll hand it over to Ben for NASCAR. And once again, Josh, thank you so much for being with us. Make sure you get some rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, we will see you tomorrow. Thanks again.
Yeah. I'll see you later, Josh.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. Well, we had a crazy ending to the NASCAR Cup Series race at Circuit of the Americas in overtime, a three-way battle for the win between Ross Chastain, AJ Allmendinger, and Alex Bowman. And once again, Trackhouse looks strong. We've been talking about how strong they look all season long so far. Chastain entered Circuit of the Americas coming off a third-place finish at Las Vegas and two runner-up finishes at Phoenix and Atlanta. His teammate Daniel Suarez started second on the grid and won stage one, but got stuck deep in the field after pitting on a different strategy and then got spun on a restart. Suarez really wasn't able to recover from that. Chastain, on the other hand, had one of the best cars all day long, but on the final lap, Allmendinger used the bumper to move Chastain out of the way just a little bit. Then Chastain fought back as Bowman tried to take the advantage of the two of them getting together a little bit. Chastain then nailed Allmendinger from behind, shoving him into Bowman, and the Dinger went spinning and was relegated to 33rd spot. At the checkered flag, the Mellon Man won for the first time in his NASCAR Cup Series career, adding his name to the list of drivers that have won in all three national touring divisions. It's also the first win for Trackhouse and the first win for Justin Marks and Pitbull as team owners at NASCAR's highest level. Now, Allmendinger, like I mentioned, fell to 33rd after getting taken out on the last lap. Not the first time he made contact with Chastain and lost a race. Remember, it happened when they were actually colleague teammates in 2020 in the Xfinity Series when they raced for a win at Daytona under the lights. So, Adam and Kobe, I think it's good that I'm moderating this session because I was definitely a little fired up on Twitter with some of the replies I was getting. So I'll answer this and let you two kind of ease me into it here. But what's your take on the move Chastain made for his first career Cup Series win? Was it a fair bump and run? Was it a dirty dump and run, if you will? Or is that just the nature of stock car racing?
Well, I'm going first in this. I think it was, we've seen it at a short track race, at Bristol, Martinsville with the bump and run. But if you're out there going for your first career win, I think you do anything to get it. And I think we saw that between Ross Chastain and Allmendinger and Alex Bowman. Ross Chastain had a strong car all day long. He and his teammate Daniel Suarez combined to lead almost most of the race. But I think it was, a traditional bump and run like we see at a short track. And how cool was it, to see the Watermelon Man, Ross Chastain, smash Watermelon on the front stretch, at the end of the race, and he actually ate a piece of watermelon that he smashed when he talked to Regan Smith afterwards. So I think it was. So to me, I think it was the traditional bump and run, and I mean, you'll do anything to get your first Cup Series run, and we saw that at Circuit of the Americas today. Between Ross Chastain, AJ Allmendinger, and Alex Bowman. I don't think anyone saw Alex Bowman, going for the win. But it's really cool to see Ross Chastain in Trackhouse Racing, Justin Marks, and we can't forget the other owner, Pitbull, who got all their first career NASCAR Cup Series win.
And Adam, you mentioned Alex Bowman going for the win. Actually, yesterday in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race, he was going for the win as well, but him and Stuart Friesen and Kyle Busch going for the same piece of real estate, and ended up all three of them colliding, and Zane Smith came through to steal the win there at the end. I'm sure Ben and Brandon will talk a little bit more about that tomorrow night on Grid Live Encore. And getting back to the situation itself, and looking at what Ross Chastain did on AJ Allmendinger, I guess you have to say you've waited your entire life to win for the first time in the NASCAR Cup Series, and you've been close in the last several weeks many times, and you don't want to wait another week. You want to win today. I think most of us, maybe 8 out of 10 of us, would have done the exact same thing Ross Chastain did. I don't know about a dumping run, spin the guy out, maybe get the bumper, knock him off the course where he doesn't spin. But you could tell Ross Chastain was completely dedicated to getting that win after running strong once again. Ross Chastain would not be denied at all. And overall, to me, it seems like just the nature of stock car racing, something that you're going to see every now and then. I know after the race when Ross Chastain was speaking to the media, he said that he felt bad the way this ended because of his friendship with AJ Allmendinger, and afraid that it's going to be affected because of what he's did. But like I said, I'm sure a lot of the drivers would have done the exact same thing, and they have done the exact same thing that Ross Chastain did. I don't know what you. I know bump and run. A lot of people feel like that's fair, but when you get to the dump and run thing, that's where it gets a little hairy, and where all the different perspectives of that start to vary a little bit. But at the end of the day, Ross Chastain was able to smash the watermelon victory lane, get his first career Cup win, and in the words of Vince Welch, I guess you could say the wheel was still imperfect today for Ross Chastain.
Amen.
Don't remind me of that call either. I don't know about that. We've got some comments in the chat here. Jats wanted to know if Cindric was fourth. I think he corrected himself here. He's eighth, but it did get me to pull the results up. I do think we have Allmendinger and Briscoe switch. We had AJ 30th, Chase 33rd. I think they were actually switched there. So yeah, Allmendinger even fell back a little bit lower than that. Our own Joe Samaniego, I felt bad for AJ. I thought Bowman would steal a win. And yeah, I mean, you want to talk about some of Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin's recent comments. I mean, how crazy would that have been if Bowman had been able to come through and steal the win today? I guess he did lead like 100 yards there or whatever it ended up being. But it looked like he was right there again in position to go through the chaos and steal a win there. And Amber saying, hugs, Ben, rough to see your driver get dumped. Well, we talked about this yesterday. I do have to remain objective here now that I'm expanding my role here at Grid.
Yes, you did.
But, I'm more upset that I lost a pick-a-winner point than anything. I picked AJ to win the race today, and, already missed out on Leclerc this morning, so that would have been a little bit of redemption for me. And Ross Chastain, had other plans here. Let me just say very quickly on here so we can move on. I think it comes down to, was it a bump and run or was it a dump and run? And what AJ did to Ross, that's, I think, typical Rubbins racing. I mean, from a couple camera angles, you can barely tell that AJ got into him. Somebody replied to one of my tweets and said, he almost beached Ross Chastain. And, I think certain camera angles maybe made it look a little bit worse than it was. There was very little contact. I think Ross, was trying to run wide. I mean, all the drivers were abusing the track limits all weekend. I want an answer from NASCAR as to why we're enforcing track limits on a few corners, but not the rest of the time. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But then, you get down the straightaway and Chastain completely, is not letting off of Allmendinger's bumper. And then when they get in the braking zone, Allmendinger has nowhere to go. He's thrown right into Alex Bowman and ends up spinning out. So that to me is a dump and run. Whether it was intentional or not, I think only Ross Chastain knows that for sure. I'm not Ross Chastain. I can't tell, what his intentions would have been. People also brought up, AJ's not racing for points, and I understand that, but, that doesn't change what happens on track. So, did AJ deserve a little bit of contact? I think that would have been more than fair. I think maybe Ross's move was a little bit too aggressive from a purist point of view, but based on the precedent that has been set in NASCAR Cup Series racing in the past, you can't fault him too much for it, I don't think. If we're going to remain objective here and be fair, he is trying to win his first Cup race, and he's going to do everything he needed to do to get that done. Michael, don't kick yourself too hard, Ben. It was a very tight race between Leclerc and Verstappen. It could have gone either way. Yeah, it certainly could have. I almost wish I'd gone with Perez, just as a little wild card there, because it looked like he might have a chance to win that race as well. But yeah, a lot of craziness going on in the racing world, and the NASCAR Cup Series certainly no exception here. Now let's follow up on Trackhouse a little bit, because like we said, we've been talking about them all season long here. Chastain finally got his breakthrough win, of course, and Suarez was close to getting a win, not only at the beginning of the race today, but also at Fontana, and of course looked good today until the contact messed up his race. But you got to say, things really seem to be clicking well for the Trackhouse team. Their Chevrolets are getting faster every week here. So, Kobe, we'll go to you first this time. Still early in the season, but with Trackhouse and Chastain getting a win, if they maintain this high level of performance, could we go so far as to say they're maybe surprise championship Cup Series contenders?
Like you said, Ben, it's still early on in the season, but if they can keep up with this performance and keep rolling off these extremely strong runs by Ross Chastain, maybe, just maybe, they can make a deep run in the playoffs. I'm not going to be as confident to say that they're going to go all the way to the championship 4 with Ross Chastain and get Daniel Suarez in the playoffs as well. Well, I think Suarez will probably be a contender to get in the playoffs later on in the season with the way both cars have been running. I think Suarez could definitely get a win later on at some point in the season. And one thing I want to point out, I know Jeff Gluck from The Athletic has been making fun of himself for his preseason hot take, which has turned really, really cold now, where he said this season Trackhouse Racing would be one of the most disappointing teams in the NASCAR Cup Series. And oh boy, he couldn't be more wrong with that take. Yeah, so Justin Marks, Pit Bull, proving him wrong there. But I have to say, even I didn't expect Trackhouse to be this strong. I thought they would be much better than they were last season, but nobody could have expected them winning a race before Joe Gibbs Racing even goes to victory lane, which is really crazy to say. So Ross Chastain, Trackhouse, I think they're gonna keep building this momentum, and probably gonna see Ross contending for wins throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Kobe. And we actually had someone in the comment section whose first name is, who's actually someone that I recognize in the comment section that has appeared a lot on Josh's F1 watch-alongs. JATZ, it's actually a lady named Beth who lives in Australia, and she's frequently to comment in Josh's watch along F1 when Josh does a watch along for Formula One. And I actually told her to subscribe to the Grid Network, since we talk a lot of motorsports. So happy to see you in the comment section tonight, Beth. And getting back to the question, yeah, they could be surprise championship contenders. I didn't expect this at all from Trackhouse Racing. I thought maybe once we get to the middle of the season, we would see him, compete for wins. But I think Ross Chastain is going to win a few more races this year. I think Daniel Suarez is going to win this year. Do I think they'll be in the championship 4? No. But how cool is it to see Justin Marks and Pitbull and everyone at Trackhouse Racing get their first career win today after all the success they've had so far this year. And we're going up now to some short tracks, Richmond and Martinsville. Then we have a comment from our own Joe Samigo. Says, is Joe Gibbs the most disappointing team in 2022? I'm going to say yeah. I'm surprised they have won this year, but we're going to get into that, since Richmond and Martinsville are coming up, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can break through.
Yeah, I think we have that actually as one of our next segments here. So maybe hold our thoughts for a second on that. We'll get to that in a little bit here. But what can you say about Trackhouse? They have certainly picked up, I'd say picked up right where Chip Ganassi Racing left off. I think that maybe they're even a level above that right now with how well Chastain certainly, I think, is one of the most improved drivers already from 2021 to 2022. And Daniel Suarez as well. He's right there. You got to think a win is a matter of when, not if at this point. So, certainly great runs for Trackhouse and great runs for a lot of Chevrolet teams as well. But Trackhouse in particular have been a real pleasant surprise to start this season. Now, one thing that the three drivers battling for the win at the end of the race today all have in common, they all drove in lower tier equipment and paid their dues to reach this level in their careers to compete for wins in good equipment. Chastain, of course, spent time with multiple teams that had cars and trucks not capable of winning races in all three national series and ran at the back in uncompetitive equipment for teams like Premium Motorsports and Spire Motorsports to start his Cup career. Alex Bowman raced at BK Racing and Tommy Baldwin Racing in stints that were so forgettable. Everybody thought he was a rookie when he came in with Hendrick Motorsports in 2018. But to start his time off in the Cup Series was pretty rough. He finally got his big break at Hendrick Motorsports when Dale Jr. stepped away. And then AJ Allmendinger, of course, failing to so much as even qualify for a lot of races in 2007 at Red Bull when he first came over from Champ Car to NASCAR. He's worked his way up, battled through a suspension in 2012, gotten back into a competitive ride with the upstart Colleague Racing. So, Adam, we'll go to you first this time. For any NASCAR drivers out there who aren't currently in competitive equipment, in this era of pay drivers and where sponsorship is a necessity just as much as talent, how much of an inspiration are these three and proof that stories like this can motivate them to continue to dig?
Well, I'm glad I'm answering this question first, because I'll just say this: do not be afraid to chase your dreams. This is really cool what we're seeing so far in NASCAR, and there's probably a lot of drivers out there who are seeing this and saying, "Hey, maybe one day when I get in the Cup Series, I may have to start off slow, but give it a couple years and I could be competitive just like that." What we're seeing from people like A.J. Allmendinger, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez is really, really cool. This is a really cool story that we're seeing right now. All this young talent winning. Like I said, do not be afraid to chase your dreams, and who knows? Someone competing right now in, say, the Xfinity Series or maybe a lower division in NASCAR will see this and say, "Hey, I saw what happened today. Maybe one day that'll happen to me." And who knows? You could change. Your dreams could just become a reality.
Well said, Adam. I don't think I could have said it any better than you just did. I think Ross Chastain is a massive inspiration to all of those drivers out there. Think of all the drivers right now in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series, even some of the drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series who don't have as competitive of a ride that Ross Chastain is in right now. That may not have the funding to drive for a top tier team right now, but that doesn't mean I won't ever get my big break. Ross Chastain had been known as a driver who used to drive lower tier and mid pack equipment, but people noticed his talent because he would always drag a slower car towards the front of the field. I know he was really famous for what he did in the number 4 Xfinity car with JD Motorsport with Johnny Davis and Gary Keller's program. There, Ross was able to finish like 11th and 12th on a car that really should have finished 20th on that day. And he was always the class of the field out of his other JD Motorsports teammates during his time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And whenever he hops in a Nice Motorsports truck in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, no disrespect to the other Nice drivers, but he completely blows them out of the water because of how good of a race car driver that he is. And I really believe that for any driver out there who saw Ross Chastain win today, it really had to motivate them a lot that someday I can be in Ross Chastain's shoes. And yes, if things are not going well for me right now, someday, if I keep working hard, if I keep having faith, that I can reach where I believe that I can go. As you know, they say sky is the limit, and we saw sky was the limit for Ross Chastain. I think the same thing is possible for other drivers as well, who have lived who are currently on the path that he was on to reach this level. And I think they can all say, if Ross Chastain can do it, why not me?
Yeah, Adam, I completely agree. Kobe completely agrees, and Joe also completely agrees as well. So very well said. And I can verify, just checking Bob Pockrass's Twitter feed here, tech is complete, no issues. So Chastain's victory is confirmed now, and what a sweet celebration story it is for that driver who's been through so much, and for all three of those guys, to have gone through the hurdles that they've had to go through in their careers, to see them all fighting for wins in the Cup Series right now is really something special. And it's proof that it is still possible. It may be a little bit harder than it used to be, but it is still possible to break through if you have the talent. Now, moving on to a question that Joe posed earlier here, is Joe Gibbs the most disappointing team in 2022? Let's talk about Toyota as a whole here, actually, because after 6 races, there is still no Toyota driver from Joe Gibbs or 2311 Racing that has won a race. They are all still winless with all 6 of their cars. However, NASCAR is heading to tracks, like Adam mentioned, Richmond and Martinsville, where Gibbs has had plenty of success in the past. If you look at today's results, Christopher Bell is the highest finishing Toyota in 3rd. Martin Truex Jr. usually runs pretty well on road courses. It was a good day, but a quiet day for him, coming home in 7th place. Denny Hamlin's bad luck to start 2022 continues as he got spun, rallied back here to finish 18th. Kyle Busch got spun after running inside the top 10. That relegated him to 28th, and then a miserable day for 2311 Racing with both of their Toyotas finishing outside the top 30. So, Kobe, we'll go to you first this time here. When you think of Toyota's success at Richmond, does that give them an opportunity to turn it around and hopefully maybe get their first win of the year in 1 week's time in Richmond?
Well, Ben, I think every week is an opportunity for Joe Gibbs Racing to turn things around. I mean, they could have won already this season, but things just didn't turn out the way that they expected. If you remember at Las Vegas, if it wasn't for that late race caution, Joe Gibbs Racing more than likely would have won that race. So there's a possibility they could have already won. It just seems like that they're having a lot of bad luck going on right now. I know today we didn't really see Toyota contending for the lead much throughout the NASCAR race today at COTA. But if you're Joe Gibbs Racing and you're frustrated, you still haven't won yet this year, 6 races into the season, look what's on the calendar next. Richmond, a place where they've won many times. Martinsville, a place where they've won many times. Christopher Bell's had success at this place in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in a short time in Cup. He's run well at these places as well. And Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch have all won at these 2 racetracks. So if you're Coach Gibbs, you have to be really excited that these 2 short track races are coming up. I think it's a great opportunity for them to turn things around and finally get that first win of the year for the organization and Toyota.
Yeah, Kobe, and you mentioned Denny Hamlin. The next 2 tracks are in Virginia, Denny Hamlin's home state. So he's going to have a lot of people that he knows cheering in the stands, at both tracks. And I think we will see Joe Gibbs Racing win at either Richmond or Martinsville. You mentioned Kobe, all the success they've had there. Martin Truex has won there. Denny Hamlin has won there. Kyle Busch has won there. So I think we will see Joe Gibbs Racing in victory lane at either Richmond or Martinsville. And, at Martinsville, everyone wants to win that historic grandfather clock of the trophy. So, especially Denny Hamlin, like I said, it's his home state now. So, he'll have a lot of people in the stands cheering him on to win.
Yeah, I certainly have to look at Toyota's track record, and I think a win is certainly a possibility for any of their teams when it comes down to it. And Martinsville as well coming up, I think it's only a matter of time. We know Joe Gibbs Racing has the star power and the team to get the job done. So they'll certainly be winners at some point. And we'll see for Toyota if that comes in the next 2 weeks or if they have to wait maybe just a little bit longer for that. Now, moving on to our driver's spotlight and taking a look at some of the racers that also competed this weekend. Samantha Tan, along with Nuria Marti, both earned victories today in their respective races. Samantha raced in Mugello, where Grid Network's own Daniel Zeri from Racers to Girls Behind the Helmet was on site covering the race weekend. Here is the video of the overall winner of 12 Hours of Mugello, courtesy of Daniel's Racers to Girls Behind the Helmet.
Recap of your race, and I think it's your first victory overall.
Yes, so we started this race P1 overall, and then I think there were some changes, you know, obviously with all the pit stops and stuff, it was moving around between like P1, P3, but I think we retook the lead from like halfway, maybe even earlier than that, and we kept it all the way to the end. All the drivers, Bryson, Nick, myself, I think we all drove consistent stints and, you know, brought the car home in one piece, kept it clean, and can't thank my team enough again for giving us a competitive car. Thank you to BMW, thank you to Motul for your support. This one's for the girlies.
Obviously, you also had a pretty strong stint towards the end. Your laps were very competitive. You were feeling always very, you know, the victory was always there?
I mean, yesterday I was actually feeling a little bit tired, but, you know, we kept that in the past, as, you know, every good race car driver does. Take one day at a time. Today I brought my A game. Again, ran very consistent laps and drove really well, so very good.
Is it the first victory for the new BMW M4?
Yeah, so this is the first victory for the BMW M4 GT3. Couldn't be happier to do it with my own team, Samantha Tan Racing, and, you know, this is going to be the first of many.
Thank you for that, Daniel. And Jesse Awuji and Bubba Wallace both didn't have very good weekends, unfortunately, at Circuit of the Americas. Awuji, did he DNQ? I have something different here on my script. It says he finished 27th. Maybe that was Bubba Wallace. But anyway, not a good weekend for Jesse Awuji or Bubba Wallace. Wallace was 38th in the Cup race. The entire wheel actually came off his car, ending his day. And that's likely going to be a 4-race suspension for his crew chief, Booty Barker. Wallace also competed in the Xfinity race and had top 5 speed in his number 18 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota Supra, but issues with the gears meant he lost a ton of speed, and that led him to only a 28th place finish in the Xfinity race. And we encourage you, as always, to visit the link in the video description to the African American Racers Association. Meanwhile, Christina and Minolides both saw both Alfa Romeo cars fail to score points, and there is also a link to Racing Pride in the video description below as well. Now I'll hand it over to Kobe and Adam for some supercars discussion.
Yeah, talking about supercars and Michael Taylor, congratulating Samantha Tan for getting that big victory at the 12 Hours of Mugello. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. And it was quite a weekend in Tasmania. After a relatively calm opening race of the weekend at Symmons Plains, the second race of the Sunday doubleheader was more action-packed, to say the least. Rookie Brock Feeney had a great start, got by Shane Van Gisbergen for the lead, and got valuable experience out front leading a supercars race. We had a red flag that stopped the action for a while when Jack LeBrock and Andre Humgartner collided. LeBrock's car had to be pulled out of the gravel after slamming hard into the tire barriers. The race restarted, Feeney leading but ran wide, and the veteran SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, slipped by the young gun to get the win, and it was the first supercars podium for the driver who's replacing the legend, Jamie Whincup. Adam, how valuable was the experience for a young driver like Brock Feeney leading laps and getting some experience racing SVG for the win?
Oh, it was incredible. You know, I don't think anybody saw this coming, you know, from Brock Feeney in the series that he used to run in. The Dunlop Super 2 series has never competed here. So it was Brock's first time actually racing at this track in Tasmania. And on yesterday's show for Pick a Winner, I said Brock would win race 3. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But, you know, I don't think it's long until we see Brock Feeney in victory lane. You know, he has a well-known... He has the well-known driver in SVG as his teammate. So, you know, he can bounce off information from Shane, since Brock is competing as a rookie. And actually, the next time we see the Repco Supercars Championship in action, it'll be alongside the Formula One cars at the Australian Grand Prix. So I think right now it's good experience for Brock, and I think it's the first many podiums we will see from this young gentleman this year.
And one of the scariest moments of the second race was an incident between Tim Slade and Cam Waters, which wasn't the first incident of the day for Slade, who made contact with Shane Van Gisbergen in qualifying. Slade and Waters were door-to-door racing, going down the straight, accelerating through one of the fastest sections of the track. Waters ran Slade out of room on the track. Slade dropped a wheel in the grass and went for a massive slide at a high rate of speed. Back into the car, caught a little air, thankfully stayed on the ground and came across the track. Nobody hit him. Slade got lucky because nobody hit him, and Waters was penalized for the incident, and he was called to the pit lane to serve a penalty. Adam, was this move by Waters unnecessarily dangerous, or just two drivers racing hard for a spot?
I think, to me, it was really, really dangerous, and I'm glad Tim Slade was able to drive away from this. He actually, when he spun, he got all four wheels off the ground, and I thought he was going to roll over. But thankfully he didn't. It was an incredible, scary situation, and I think it was really, really dangerous.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Adam. It was definitely a really, really dangerous thing to happen. I know out on the racetrack, you have to take care of your business out there, and you also have to take care of your competitors as well, because I'm sure any driver doesn't want to be the reason why somebody had a really horrible accident. And when I saw Tim Slade's back end lift off the ground, I really thought he was about to go flying in the air or something like that. But thankfully, as soon as it started to lift, came back down on the ground. And when I saw it came back down on the ground, I thought Slade was actually going to go sliding back into traffic, and it would be a nasty collision, and that didn't happen either. So we got quite lucky with that situation involving Tim Slade. I felt like the penalty of Cam Waters obviously justified. You're racing hard for a spot, and could have definitely left him more room in chat. And also a comment from Amber clapping for Samantha Tan getting the victory at Mugello. And moving on to the final race of the Supercars weekend, it was relatively uneventful compared to the second one, and it was much more calmer. Both Shelby Power, Dick Johnson Racing Ford Mustangs, Will Davison, and Anton DePasquale tried the undercut strategy to prevent Shane Van Gisbergen from completing the sweep. SVG had a great pit stop and barely came out ahead of Davison and DePasquale. That was it. He got the weekend sweep, winning all three races. Is there anything Dick Johnson Racing could have done differently, or was it SVG just too strong?
SVG was too strong, and actually, with these three wins, Shane Van Gisbergen now goes ahead of another Supercars driver we all know who has won multiple championships, Scott McLaughlin, in career wins. And actually, I think it's the first time a driver has swept all three races at Tasmania since Garth Tander did it a few years ago. So this weekend, SVG was on point all weekend long, and he's still it ain't gonna be easy to knock out the defending Repco Supercars champion. It's a long season to go. Like I said, the next time the Supercars are on track, it'll be at Albert Park in Melbourne alongside the Formula One cars at the Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah, Supercars and Formula One on the same weekend at Albert Park. That's good. That's always a really exciting event. I'm sure all the Supercars drivers are excited to be there as well. With all the fanfare that Formula One brings there to that incredible event. And just to summarize everything that happened this weekend, it was an all SVG weekend, and nobody could do anything about it. SVG was just on another level, although he didn't necessarily do what he typically does, which is absolutely stomp the field. Brock Feeney had some great runs. Some David Reynolds as well. SVG wasn't able to pull away from the field like he usually does, but still, it was an SVG like weekend, and the competition is going to be trying really hard to catch up with him. And one of the biggest shockers of the weekend is Chaz Mostert, who we expected to be his main rival for the championship this week. He was really nowhere to be seen at Symmons Plains. It was like, what happened to Chaz Mostert? After we left the last round, we were thinking that Mostert's going to take the fight to him, but in Tasmania, or it's Tassie as they like to call it down under, I'm wondering, where were you, Chaz Mostert, this weekend? I guess on vacation until we get to the Australian Grand Prix weekend.
Well, on a personal note, thank you to SVG for saving me in Pick a Winner this weekend. I was close with Leclerc and Allmendinger, but great to see SVG save me, get me a couple points there with the weekend sweep. We have a comment from our own Joe Samniego here again in the chat. Thank you, Joe, for being so active in the chat tonight. Adam, is SVG's sweep a big blow to everyone's championship hopes, or is everyone expecting at least one sweep from him with how dominant he's been, I guess, all throughout recent years?
Well, it's still young, so I think, even though SVG swept the weekend in Tasmania, I think everyone can still contend for the championship. There's a lot more races to go throughout the season, but like I said, it's going to be hard to knock off the defending Repco Supercars champion off his pedestal. He's good, and he's good. He's a good equipment, and it's still young, so anything can happen down under in Australia.
Well, since you're the supercars expert on the show, I will take your word for it. SVG certainly
got it.
Picking up right where he left off last year and having another dominant start to his season. And next Sunday, following the conclusion of the NASCAR race at Richmond, we will have week one of the grid ranking out. We only have MotoGP and NASCAR Cup Series races running that weekend. Formula One, Formula E, IndyCar Supercars, and World Rally Championship are all off that weekend. They have completed the minimum 2 races already. W Series will be scored once their first 2 races are completed. And it looks like NASCAR with 6 different winners and also only one driver above or over 50% top 5 finish rate might be scored a little bit lower than we're used to seeing them. So, Kobe, is NASCAR at the point where, we talk about the Wheel of Destiny sometimes on this show with Formula E. Are they just as, if not more, unpredictable than that series right now?
Well, Ben, in my opinion, we might need to break out a NASCAR Wheel of Destiny the way things are going. And I remember this. I remember the season. I forget what year it was, but it was several seasons ago where we had all these different winners in different races. Like right now, we have 6 different winners in 6 races, and that's when we started talking about, are we going to get 16 race winners? I don't think we'll get that high, but I could see maybe 12. 13, maybe even 14 different race winners this season. But it's really crazy how competitive NASCAR is right now. The parity is all across the board is excellent. And we're starting to see a lot of new names running up front that we're not used to seeing, like Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, and Chase Briscoe. Some of the younger drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series garage in terms of experience at the Cup levels. So I really think NASCAR is super unpredictable. I don't know if I'll go as far to say as unpredictable as Formula E, but it seems like especially for pick a winner, it's hard to get the correct driver who's going to end up winning the race because of all the different things happening in NASCAR. It seems like when they switch to this next car, we'll see a lot more comers and goers throughout the race than we've seen in quite some time.
And here's a list of each driver who's leading their respective grid rating for their series. In Formula One, it's Charles Leclerc. In Formula E, Eduardo Mortara has it. IndyCar, it's Scott McLaughlin. MotoGP, it's Miguel Oliveira. NASCAR, it's Ross Chastain. He's the driver with greater than 50% top 5 rate, actually top 3 rate, if you want to go that far. So no surprise there. No surprise in Supercars either. It's Shane Van Gisbergen and Callie Robin-Perra rounds it off for WRC. So, Adam, we'll come to this question on your side of things here. Which driver is the biggest surprise to you, and which one do you think might be the grid ranking leader when we release it for week 1 next week?
Which driver has been the biggest surprise to me so far? I'm going to go IndyCar, and I'm going to say Scott McLaughlin. why. Yeah, it's his second full year driving for Team Penske, and I don't think anybody saw this coming, so soon. I thought it would at least take him a couple of years, to get situated, but now Scott McLaughlin is going back to tracks he knows from last year. And which driver do I think will lead the grid ranking after week 1? I just said it. Scott McLaughlin. I think he, next time we see IndyCar will be on the historic streets of Long Beach. And Joe says about the NASCAR Wheel of Destiny, a wheel with 40 options will be crazy. Yeah, Joe, I completely agree with you on that. And I also want to thank everyone for all the comments tonight. Another long show for us here, but we want to say thank you to everyone who's commented. And now I'll throw it back to Ben.
Now, I'll throw it right back to you in a second here. I just want to echo you and thank everybody for sticking around. We're coming up on an hour and a half here. I think we've exceeded that when you take the countdown clock into consideration.
That's right.
But as always, be sure to subscribe to our channel, tune in all year long to follow the grid ranking and see who joins Martin Truex Jr., Marc Marquez, Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Ogier as the grid ranking world champion. The 6th annual grid ranking is going to be a fun one in 2022, I'm sure. Now back over to Adam for one of our closing traditions here, the one shining moment.
Thank you, Ben. And like you just said, it's now time for our grid one shining moment. Lots of choices this motorsports weekend, so I'll throw it right back to you, Ben. Kind of like a hot potato. So, what's your grid one shining moment from this motorsports weekend?
He did kind of move my childhood favorite driver out of the way to get it done, but I am going to put my objectivity hat back on here again. Let's give the one shining moment to Ross Chastain. If we're being honest here, it is a long time coming. He has nickel and dimed his way literally in many respects to get this opportunity in his Cup Series career. And like I said earlier in the show, he is certainly, I think, if NASCAR had a most improved driver of the year award, Ross is running away with that right now. When you look at where he was with Chip Ganassi last year, yeah, he had a couple of strong runs, but we're starting to question, is this the same driver that was driving the wheels off that Nice Motorsports truck, driving the wheels off of that JD Motorsports Xfinity car? He had a lot of experience in Cup, albeit at the level of a backmarker team, but logging laps, gaining experience at these tracks. And it wasn't exactly a great season for him, his first year in solid equipment in Chip Ganassi Racing. Well, he has turned it up to 11 this year, and a run of 4 straight top 3 finishes in Cup is impressive no matter what the situation is. This is the top level of stock car racing in the world and in NASCAR here. So Ross Chastain getting the job done today, you have to hand it to him and give him the one shining moment. I think it's great to see a story like that, in an era where, sponsorship is so key here. And Ross hasn't always had that in his career. And even when he thought he had it with DC Solar, they ended up getting raided by the FBI. I mean, you really can't make it up. He has had some bad luck bite him throughout his career, but to get this opportunity, it looks like he finally has some solid footing with Trackhouse. He's certainly making the most of it. So that is my one shining moment. Great job, Ross Chastain, and the first of many, I'm sure, in his Cup Series career.
Yeah, probably the first of many wins for Ross Chastain. And as we were talking about earlier, could they be championship contenders? Could Ross Chastain get a championship or two at the NASCAR Cup Series level? So be sure to stay tuned for that. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you said about that. A great story, and what I'm going to call the cash is king era, where everything depends on sponsorship and money, and to basically come from nothing like Ross Chastain did and make it big time and drive one of the top cars in the NASCAR Cup Series and go out there and win it. That was just so spectacular. And before I share my grid one shining moment, Michael Tiller sharing his, saying that your shining moment has to be the battle between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. If they keep this up, you think that we could have a very exciting season ahead of us. Totally agree with you, Michael. And if last year was really great between Hamilton and Verstappen until the very end, think about what it could be this season if we have like a take 2 of an epic Formula One championship battle between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. And my one shining moment is going to be my dinner that's sitting in the next room over because I am starving. Been on the air for over 90 minutes, almost 11 o'clock here on the East Coast, and I haven't gotten anything to eat yet. So I'm very anxious to wrap up here so I can finally eat my dinner. And that's my great one shining moment. I'm just kidding. That's not my real shining moment. My shining moment is actually going to be a driver who made his debut in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series yesterday. They call him the Brad Man, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Brad Perez, driving the number 43 truck for Arabian Brothers Racing. It was knowing Brad's story. It's in a way it's kind of similar like Ross and kind of not because Brad has always dreamed of being a NASCAR driver. Right now he's a tire specialist. I'm at the Benedetto's truck, and he's also worked for Alpha Prime as well in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So his day job is actually working inside the NASCAR garage. But this opportunity came about for him to have the funding to race in NASCAR. And since he was a little kid, this was his dream. A lot of us dream of being a NASCAR driver, IndyCar driver, Formula One driver as a kid. But Brad, he was able to keep working, keep digging, making all of those connections, got his foot in the door in the sport, have a nice job doing that. And now Brad can say at the end of the day, I fulfilled my childhood dream. I got to be a NASCAR driver. And I'm sure Ben and Brandon is going to talk a little bit more about Brad Perez's run at COTA yesterday in the Truck Series race. But quite a story by Brad being able to live out his dream the way that he did.
Just before we kick it over to Adam here, we will talk about Brad on tomorrow's show, Kobe. You can be sure of that. It is a great story, and thanks for mentioning him.
Yeah, that's really, really a cool story, Kobe. And for me, my great one shining moment has to go to a driver who's competed in NASCAR before he competed in the Xfinity race Saturday, competed in the Cup race today, and that's 59-year-old Boris Said. For those of you who don't know who that is, he's a really talented road racer. He's competed in all three series of NASCAR. He's a two-time class champion at the 24 Hours of Daytona, won his class at the 12 Hours of Sebring. He's won at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. He's competed in the SCCA Trans Am Series along with people like Tommy Kendall, Dorsey Schrader, Ron Fellows from Canada. He's even competed in the Repco Supercars Championship at the Bathurst 1000. So to see Boris Said out there competing today, age is not a factor. We've seen Helio Castroneves come back this year and drive full time. We all know about Tom Brady. He retired at 45 to come back and play with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So really cool to see Boris Said out there and competing. And so to me, that's my grade one shining moment. And then we have a comment saying, I'm definitely a Said head. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, God. Those Said heads, are probably pretty cool to see him back in a cup car. He didn't have a strong run today, but for me, my grade one shining moment has to go to Boris Said.
Yeah, definitely gotta love all our Said heads out there. And at one point, Boris Said actually said, I feel like I'm saying said a lot in this sentence, but Boris once said that he was going to retire from running NASCAR on road courses, and that was going to be it. Well, it's certainly been a short-lived retirement because he's competed in NASCAR road course events since he said that was going to be it for him. And it just shows you that the fire is the fire is still burning inside Boris Said to go out there, be competitive, and show he still has it at his much older age now, running NASCAR on the road courses. and also have another one shining moment from our own Joe Samaniego, saying his one shining moment is Samantha Tan getting the victory at the 12 hours of Mugello. Yes, that was definitely a great moment as well. Samantha working so hard to reach this level of motorsports and win a major endurance race after all that hard work. Certainly a feel good story there. And then Daniel Mobley says, "What's up, gentlemen? Unfortunately, we're at the end of what I like to call our marathon show. So if you're interested in what was talked about tonight on Grid Live Wrap Up, you can, after we're off the air, you can feel free to rewind and go through the entire show." And with that said, we want to remind all of our viewers to please like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon page. Invest in Grid Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grid Network. And a big thank you to Edward Hunter from Formula E Zone who was here during our Formula 1 section of the show. Amber, you've been in the chat room tonight as well. Thank you so much. And Zachary Wall for buying us one. We greatly appreciate it. And any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below in referral code gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. And Monday night, we've already promoted this a bit. Catch Grid Live Encore with Brandon Crossland and Ben Snyder. They're going to recap the Saturday Trucks Xfinity doubleheader at COTA and the pair of Formula 2 races in Saudi Arabia. Then Wednesday night, Adam and I will return for another edition of Grid Tonight to break down the latest news in motorsports. And before I go off there, I want to give a big thank you to all of our viewers out there for sticking around for over an hour and 40 minutes, a long time. That's the same amount of time at the next IMSA race on the streets of Long Beach. So big thank you to all of you for sharing your comments, and we'll always do our best to answer your questions and make this a fun, interactive experience. And with that said, for Adam Lemery, Ben Snyder, and Joshua Birch, who was here earlier in the show, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful week ahead.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.